welcome, Ashraf. It's nice to finally meet you. I'd shake your hand, but we're on different continents, so, might have to do that next time. Anyway, it's a pleasure to have you spend some time with us. It's, I know it's pretty late there in London, so I really appreciate you staying up with us. It's almost midnight there, right?
My pleasure. Yeah, it's 20 past midnight, yeah.
Well, when I was looking through your site and trying to learn a little bit more about you, I saw this amazing video on your About page where you have a compilation of you on 4 different financial channels talking 4 different languages. How did you learn to speak all those and so fluently that you can be an expert on TV talking about currency?
Yeah. Well, I was very fortunate, to learn these languages on a combination of living in different countries. And I'm originally from Algeria. When you're from Algeria, you speak Arabic and French.
Yeah.
And when you know French, you tend to know also Spanish with a little bit of help. And English is probably one of the easiest languages in the world, English, and maybe some people may find that hard to believe. And so, yeah, like you saw the interviews, that you saw on my media area of my website, I did interviews in Arabic, in Spanish, in French, in English. So, foreign exchange is a very global world. I know that sounds very corny, but, I would not say that I'm fluent in Spanish and Italian, as I am in English or Arabic, but, I did my homework for those interviews to learn to speak about things like the Federal Reserve and payrolls and interest rate cuts. And I really, I find it a challenge to want to reach out to all those people who have been reaching out to my website from the corners of the world. And there are many, many ways of understanding something like the currency market through technicals, through the fundamentals. And I try to really get them to understand ways from my way of looking at it, which is intermarket analysis.
Before we get into that, how did you initially get attracted into the market? Because everybody has their story. Everybody has a big different background. So what was the driver for you?
Well, when I was actually starting my MBA, and no, you do not need to have an MBA to get into Forex or foreign exchange. But I chose to take a class. It was called the Central Banks in the Global Economy in George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And I was very fortunate to have a teacher who was not only very pretty, but she had a very engaging character. She was herself a currency trader. And when she was teaching us, she was finishing her PhD and she was writing a thesis. This is back in the early 90s, Jeff. She was writing, her thesis was working on the European Monetary Union, and she had Hans Tietmeyer, who was the former head of the Bundesbank, the central bank in Germany. He wrote a foreword in her book. So she made us learn and study. So this is back in the early 90s. She made us learn and study about the different styles of the major central banks. So part of the course, Jeff, is that we had to know what is the different ways of operating from the Bundesbank, the Federal Reserve, and the Bank of Japan, all the history of their interest rate changes. And she made us do what you call a currency, basically a currency forecast and using interest rate the theory. But we also had to look at the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times to use the fundamentals and why things move. And I did well in that class, and I said, is there a way to make money out of this? I was not really so much interested in matters of corporate finance and dividend discount model and financial accounting. Even though I took those classes, I really was always interested in what makes the market move and why. So I worked after that. After basically school, I did some fixed income analysis in the emerging markets for what they used to be called the Brady bonds, which is the Brady bonds, which is for emerging markets bonds. And from there, I went into the idea of the market. And
was this when you were at Reuters?
I was drawn. Yes, this is when I was with Reuters, and I used my languages. I was talking to central banks to Ministry of Finance there in Latin American countries, in the Middle East, asking them the way that they calculated the yield and, how they determined their options. And then I said, wait a minute, I want to do more stuff here than providing information for hedge funds. And slowly, I started talking to one of those hedge funds, one of those clients, and they got me into the idea of this thing that hit me when I was in school, which is currencies. And slowly I started working for some basically boutique firms that were doing some sort of currency. And then slowly I ended up in the financing arm or the lending arm of the United Nations called IFAD. It's the National Fund for Agricultural Development. And they had a portfolio of over $3 billion back in the days, in the mid-90s, late 90s. It was quite good. And we were looking at a portfolio that had basically that invested in emerging market and G5 fixed income securities, the government bonds, and also at equities. And they were looking at the currency portion and how to hedge that. So we were working closely with currency overlay managers, and I said, this is great, approaching currency from a passive approach. I wanna approach currencies from an active approach. And I got in finally, and I started to analyze this basically before the euro was born in '99. I had a look at the Deutschmark, and I was always interested in the way these things understood. And I always wanted to dirty my hands and go out there and determine what makes these market moves. And slowly I was with a firm that was it's called MG Financial. With it, I started this website that's called Forex News. It's basically it was the first website that was a 24-hour analysis for the provided 24-hour analysis for the currency market. Yeah, and we got to a point, Jeff, where a lot of people start providing analysis, on the markets. But I was always, I started doing business, doing interviews on TV and everything. But I always wanted to add something new, and rather than using the 3 minutes or 5 minutes, where's the euro going? But you want to know why, and you always want to give a reason.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you want to know why. Whether you made money or you lost money, you want to know why. And from then on, the idea slowly, after the commodities market started to rally in 2002, I really started to take a look at more of a cross-market analysis and why currencies work the way they do.
Thanks so much for spending some time with us tonight, and hope you get some sleep because you have to get up early in the morning again. Tomorrow's Fed Day.
Yep. And it is the State of the Union Day, so allow me to tell people that the State of the Union speech is going to be very important. I don't know if this thing is going to go before that or no. Is it going to go before that or no?
I'm not sure.
Well, if it does, the State of the Union speech is usually around 9 p.m. Eastern on a Wednesday, tomorrow. Okay? It's going to be very important. So if Obama becomes very insistent about this plan with the banks and with the proprietary trading in his speech, like he was last Thursday, and the sentences and the main paragraphs of the State of the Union speech are usually released 2 hours before the State of the Union speech, what are you going to get in? You're going to get in the effect of the FOMC with the effect of the releases of the State of the Union before the speech is. And when you get that, the Asian session is going to go crazy.
It'll be an exciting night for us, that's for sure. Okay, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Hello, this is Ashraf Laidi from AshrafLaidi.com, and I am happy to be appearing on the Three Gurus webinar on March 3rd of 2010. That's the third day of the third month of this year, and it is called the Three Gurus. And I'll be on there, and you can access this via the web anywhere you are in the world, and it's AshrafLaidi.com. For more information on my stuff, you can go on Twitter.com/ALaidi.